All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Dungan-Mott Music and Movie Podcast. And it's been a good little while since we've recorded an episode and put one out. So we're back after multiple put-offs, that relating to me and me kind of one day wanting to do an episode, the next day getting busy doing something else. So we're back and better than ever. So with me, as usual, is Mr. Stephen Mott. How you doing, Stephen?
Great brother Jake, Z drummer.
All righty. So if I sound hoarse, it's because I'm battling a head cold. But we're back with nothing but the blues this week. So this week we're going to be reviewing 1994's Eric Clapton From the Cradle. So this was this was Stephen's pick. Just asked him right off the cuff to pick an episode or pick an album, and he said From the Cradle. I said that's great, something I know pretty well. So yeah, we're gonna do From the Cradle this week. So this came out 2 years after his massively successful Unplugged, which put Clapton back on the map as an artist. And I mean that had Tears in Heaven on it, and then Layla I think that was a huge hit at the time. So I mean, it was a big album for him, and this was the first studio album since Journeyman, way back in '89. So it had been quite a little while since a studio release, and kind of seemed like people were long awaiting what Clapton was to do next. And of course, the next album of new material wouldn't come out until 4 years after this with Pilgrim. So there you go. But this album I really, really enjoy. It was Clapton's first attempt at an all blues record, and I really, really enjoy it. I have quite an interesting background with this album, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But, Stephen, how did you discover this album, and what's your initial thoughts on
I think honestly that you have put me onto this album because about the time about freshman year or so of high school, I just started getting into Clapton, and the first thing I got into was Unplugged, and the album you was talking about earlier, and then I got into a lot of other stuff, and it was quite a while later I got into, or I even knew about this one, From the Cradle, and really, I think we listened to it on the bus the first time I ever heard it, and I just the first time I didn't think much of it because I hadn't listened to a lot of blues, but once I know about blues more now and I get the vibe more, I think this is probably one of the finest. So that's pretty much the background. You pretty much put me on to it, brother.
it? Okay, so as far as me getting into this album, I bought this album many, many years ago when I was huge into Eric Clapton, and I mean, just a major, major Clapton fan at that point, and which I still am to this day. Of course, we wouldn't be doing these albums like we have been if we weren't fans. But I went to a Fred's store, which now all of them's pretty much one out of business, but I always liked going in there because they had a very, very eclectic CD selection. And they had anything from Judas Priest to Celine Dion. So very, very eclectic. So I was just going through looking one day and found Eric Clapton From the Cradle. And it said Clapton. So I picked it up. I had to have this record. And at this point, this was before I got into Spotify and stuff like that. So I had a portable CD player. So I bought this album, took it out to my car, and put it in the CD player. And first song came on, it was blues. And I was kind of like, well, okay. Just basically went through each track and it was blues. So I kind of took it out of the CD player, threw it to the side, put another Clapton album in and listened to that. So eventually the disc, about a couple of days after I got it, wound up getting damaged. It got broken in half somehow, chain reaction or something from something I can't remember. But years later, I then decided I was kind of getting back into Clapton after a good little while of kind of not listening to him. And this was an album I always wanted to check into and kind of listen to and form my own opinion on it, because this was one I was very, very interested in. I always loved these kind of obscure later in career albums. And I mean, this came out in '94, and this was kind of right in the middle of the grunge movement, or a little after it. Listened to it, and I really enjoyed it. But you mentioned before we started recording that this was an album. The more you hear it, the more you enjoy it. This is the same here with me, and I'm up to the point. This is probably my favorite Clapton record, because it's just the one I go back to the most with, and it's one I can sit down and just listen to from start to finish. And I mean, I know I've talked about in the past the rule of 10 with albums and stuff. I don't like albums that's longer than 10. This one is definitely an exception, because I think this album is paced very well as far as the track listing goes. I think it goes by very fast. Like today, I sat down and listened to it for the first time in a very long time, preparing for this episode, and it just went right on by. And I mean, that's probably part of me knowing this album pretty well. So that's my opening thoughts into this record. And the title itself comes from a poem by Clapton, and I pulled it up here on not YouTube, but Wikipedia, and it's pretty interesting. Let me find it here. This is printed in the CD booklet. It says, "All along the path I tread, my heart betrays my weary head, with nothing but love to save, from the cradle to the grave." And I seem to have screwed part of that up, but you get the gist. Just look in the CD booklet, you'll see it. So it kind of, some people kind of said, why is it called From the Cradle? Because he wasn't really into blues. He wasn't really into music coming straight from birth or anything like that. But I mean, it was a meaningful thing to him. And I mean, he'd always been rooted in the blues. And I mean, multiple albums had blues covers on it. So yeah, this album is pretty much this was recorded live in the studio with no overdubs or edits. The only overdubs that are actually on the album is guitar on Hoochie Coochie Man and percussion on Motherless Child, which is, I've read here, likely the hand claps. So, and it very much sounds like a live recording in the studio. And later it won the 1995 Grammy Award for Best Traditional Blues Album, and received a further nomination for Album of the Year. So, I mean, it was a pretty relatively successful album. I think at the time it may have gotten a little bit of mixed reviews, especially with the direction that he took with it being all blues. But yeah, I enjoy this record. And Steven said he enjoys this record as well, off off recording here. But this was produced by Clapton and Russ Titelman, who was a longtime producer for Clapton. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into this record. If you're ready, Stephen, what do
Yes,
you say?
sir.
All righty. So the first track on this album is Blues Before Sunrise. So I know this track from Albert King. When I first heard this record, I knew the Albert King version. But this, from what I understand, this is supposed to be a takeoff of a much different version of the song by, I believe, Elmore James. Yes, and I like it. It sets the mood for the album totally. I mean, it's a mood setter for the album. Good opener. His vocals are interesting. He's kind of got this much more of a gruff, deeper voice for this particular song, which I kind of find it very interesting. I think his vocal style in this particular song is very, very interesting and kind of different compared to other albums. So Blues Before Sunrise, I think, is a fine opener and a very good song. So, Stephen, what's your thoughts on Blues Before Sunrise?
Well, I'm not very familiar at all with any other version except this version. So, to tell you the truth, so and I actually did do a cover of this one, and well, it wasn't just like that version, but that's besides the point. Anyway, yeah, like you said, very low and gravelly voice, but that's really the only thing that's the only way it would probably fit the song, in my opinion. Any other way it wouldn't sound as good. That's the best way. He basically, what I'm trying to say is he basically did it to the best extent of what it could have been done as, versus taking a long solo with it and all this like he did on some of the other tracks, which for those it was better. But with this one, he chose to stay a little bit more traditional style and just play the riff, a couple times through and just wrap it up. That's that. And I think that's the way he should have done it. And I remember that the first time I hearing this, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, this is pretty much to the point. There's not much else to it besides, the riff, verse, riff. You know what I'm saying. But I think that's pretty much it. I think he did a good job of arranging this particular song and this album in the way that they did it and the length of the songs and stuff. And that's pretty much it, brother. I've always liked this one pretty well. So back to you.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number two, Third Degree. So drops it down a notch in tempo, kind of a slow, drudging blues song. The lyrics are pretty interesting. I mean, just kind of interesting, kind of retrospective type, introspective lyrics, I guess you could say, if that's even a word. I'm trying to say another word, but you get the gist. So yeah, I like Third Degree quite a bit. I mean, it's a slower blues song, just I mean to the point. I mean, it's not real long or anything like that. Great piano work by Chris Stanton, who came back to the band for this album. So yeah, I like Third Degree quite a bit. I think it's a really good song. And to you, Stephen, what do you think of this track?
Well, when I think of this song, I think about the guitar work, the lead work by Clapton. I think I love the tone on this one, real clean tone and good high end on the guitar. But anyway, besides the guitar talk, I've always liked the song as a blues song, pretty much traditional, you know, I say BB King type, but that's just because that's his style. Like, just let the band play and kind of play lead over it. Just let the band play the bass or whatever they want to do over it. But um, I like it. I like it pretty well, and it's just kind of Clapton's trademark to do that sort of style. He calls it accompaniment blues, which is basically him coming in and out with a guitar between vocals and adding in the fills between, and that's probably his when he's at his best with the blues. And also, I'd like to say this is as close to he's come to his best, but his best is probably when he was in Cream, in my opinion. But this is as close as he ever came after Cream till now, even that he ever got to being to that level. Which he's probably his technical ability was always there. It's just he went different directions with his music, so it just shined through with this. with the blues, and I'll get into that with some of the other tracks. And by the way, a great solo on this one too. Love the solo, and this was one of the first ones, first blues songs I learned how to play lead style and stuff too. Kind of just it teaches you when you learn Clapton, it teaches you the basic things about blues, but the way he does it is, in my opinion, better than what other people would call, you know, like more advanced style than his. People say, well, Clapton is just he does just the one little scale, or he stays in the one little spot. Well, to me, it sounds better the way he does it than the way you do it. You just doing everything else, playing all over it, just because you want to make it look better and look like you know everything. But um, my rant is over. So back to you, Deb.
Alrighty, so then we move to the next track, Reconsider Baby. So the tempo goes back up a notch on this song, kind of a more up tempo blues track, and I like it. I think the way it starts is pretty interesting. I mean, it kind of starts with Clapton on the guitar, and then slowly the band kind of chimes in, and finally the song kind of blossoms out. And yeah, I mean, it's a up tempo blues shuffle. I like it. I think it's a good track, and this is kind of where the album kind of picks itself up. And I think from here on out, I mean, it's pretty kind of a much more up tempo, at least mid tempo album. So yeah, I like Reconsider Baby quite a bit. So Stephen, what's your thoughts?
I honestly don't think they originally intended this take for it to be on the album. The way it started off sounded very out of time, and if it wouldn't have turned out perfect the way it did, they this would definitely not have been. I don't think they would have done the intro like that. To be honest, live they might have done it like that, and that probably might prove me wrong, but that's just my theory, that it didn't sound quite right, and I don't think Clapton would do something like that on purpose. It sounded very disjointed, but the way it turned out, you know, it was okay. Which I've had that happen to me many a time. I've tried to record stuff, and a certain take turned out a certain way, and it wasn't the way I intended, but the way it turned out was, it was pretty good, or I thought so. You know, um, I think that's just the way that thought process went. Sometimes I think, like, what made him have this take over this take, or you know this intro longer, just stuff like that. But that's just the thought. And overall, the song is good. It's just another traditional type. Well, I don't know if it's traditional type blues, but that's just the way I'm thinking about it. People have different definitions of traditional, but like, that's all I can think of to say traditional, and not quite as straightforward as like Blues Before Sunrise was. A little bit more to it, but that's the way I like it. So back to you, brother.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 4, Coochie Coochie Man. So I mean, this is a blues song that's been covered by everyone. I mean, the Allman Brothers did it. Jeff Healey has a great. His is much more of kind of a dirtier version as far as the playing goes. It's much more heavy rock, but still a very good version of the song. But this version nonetheless is very good. I mean, you've got some great harmonica work by Jerry Portnoy, and I think it's a very good cover, or a very good song. And this is probably the most well-known track off the album. It's the one that's made it into the set the most. This and another song are the two that's made it into the set the most off this album. And definitely, I mean, it has made its place in the Clapton set. I really enjoy it. I don't think this was a single. I think only one single was released, at least commercially. There may have been a few promo singles off this record, But there was only one, I'm pretty sure, commercial single off this album. So yeah, this is a good track, and I really enjoyed. It's a good rendition of the song. So Stephen, what's your thoughts?
I I don't like this version that much compared to his live versions because he keeps time with the snare, whoever the drummer is at the time, which it's either Steve Gadd or whoever's playing. But live they keep the snare count between that main riff during the verse, and you just have to hear it if you don't know what I mean. But they don't really keep time with it, and it sounds kind of disjointed when they come back in. But between the riff, I think they should have kept time. It sounds very kind of rough. And I did hear Clapton say in an interview on a YouTube video from that interview that we was talking about earlier, or some, in the studio or whatever. It was from that same video. But anyway, um, it was called like interview number 2 or something like that. And he said that this they had did it, and then he wanted to do it again. They thought that was going to be on the album, but he wasn't satisfied with it, so they did it again. But to me, this version was not Clapton or Clapton's band's best rendition of it at all. I think they would have been better off doing it the way he does it, predominantly live. But and I think he should have done a guitar solo instead of having the harmonica. I think I think that would have went over a lot better because the harmonica is good, but it just kind of drags by. It's just that's the way harmonica is, though. No matter how good the playing is, it's just not quite as electrified. That's the only way I can think to describe it. But honestly, I don't think this should have been on the album. That's a bold statement, but I was just going to come out and say that. But back to you, Devon.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So I did look. Just kind of a side note, there was one commercial single off this album, which is pretty interesting. So then we move to the next track, 5 Long Years. So I mean, this is pretty much a kind of a slow blues, and I mean it's it is what it is. I mean, I just really kind of having trouble finding words to describe it. Really, very very good song, very good rendition of the song. This is the other that kind of stayed in the set. He would bring this one out here and there, especially after this tour. Now he's kind of retired it. Other than Hoochie Coochie Man, every song off this album has been retired. Well, actually, another song on this album is actually featured pretty heavily live, but I'll get into that one a little bit later. But yeah, 5 Long Years is really good. I love it live because they extend it out and they let the band itself take some solos and stuff. So yeah, definitely awesome. A version of this song I recommend is the Fillmore version, which I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But the Fillmore 1994 version is very smoking. So yeah, that's my thoughts on 5 Long Years. So Stephen, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think on every song, Clapton should just completely dominate everything and just have 10-minute solos. I'm just playing. Anyway, I was just trying to contrast what you said, but anyway, like you said, there's not a lot of different ways to do 5 Long Years. Um, and really, the only thing it leaves it up to is just the quality of your lead, your front man. And if your front man just so happens to be Eric Clapton, you are in pretty good shape. So it's pretty much all Clapton. Is what I'm trying to get at. Like you said, the solos by the band later, but really, really, it comes down to Clapton pretty much. Any blues band can sound can make it sound pretty good. It doesn't sound a lot different with any other band when I'm trying to say a certain sound. And 5 Long Years is a good example of one of those songs. Kind of sounds the same no matter who does it as far as the backing band, but same beat and everything. But great rendition. and I liked it. So back to you.
Alrighty, so then we move to track number 6, I'm Tore Down. So this is kind of another semi well known song off the record because this one did actually kind of stay in the set after the tour. It was dropped, of course, around the time of Pilgrim, but it was kind of a staple in the set there for a while after this record. And I really enjoy it. I think this is another one. I think this would have actually been a good single off the record. Maybe a good first single, possibly, because, like I said, there's only one commercial single off the record. But yeah, I'm Tore Down. I really, really enjoy it. I think it's a fine kind of mid tempo shuffle. So yeah, just a great, great song. There's several live versions. I recommend all of them. I think they're all great. In particular, the Hyde Park version from '96 is a great version. Yeah, that's my opinion on Tore Down. Steven, what's your thoughts?
Well, the band was, the band's tight on the whole album, and on this one, I think they just played it just the way it should be played, and that's just pretty much the vibe I get from it. The band played it right on perfectly, and I know that sounds stupid, but that's just my thoughts. And the only thing else I get from it is I love the way Clapton has it arranged with the lead guitar. And I think Devin probably knows that because I've covered it a couple of times. Not on, record or whatever, but or on YouTube, but I play it quite a bit. So that's pretty much what I learned to play blues guitar off of is I bought a book with like the accompaniment stuff in it, like and it was the From the Cradle book, and it was like all the tablature for it, the guitar stuff, and that's how I learned to play blues guitar. And so I'm very fond of pretty much everything about this track. So and great solo. I think it's one of his best solos, and I know it by heart. So back to you, brother.
Alrighty, and I'll have to agree. I think this band is super tight all throughout this album, especially on this song. I think they're very, very tight. And I think this is probably Clapton's one of Clapton's peaks as a guitarist around this point. I think he peaked in with Cream, and then I think he peaked again around the slow hand period, then the journeyman period, and then this period, and then he's peaked some here after. But I think that this whole band works as a unit. But the next track on the album, moving on here, How Long Blues. So this is much more of a stripped down version. You've got Clapton playing some dobro, and that's the only kind of overdub on the album, really, is on this song, and there's some percussion on Motherless Child, which we'll talk about in a few. But yeah, I like it. I think this is I mean, it's kind of a more up tempo number. Like I said, very, very stripped down. You've got some percussion played actually by Richie Hayward. And I get into the whole band at the end of the review and stuff like that because it is a lot to talk about with this band. But How Long Blues, I really, really enjoy. I think this is a fine, fine song. And that's pretty much all I have to stay straight to the point. I enjoy this track. So, Steven, what's your thoughts?
Actually, I don't think that's overdub because I've seen it live, and him and Dr. John, just them two did it, and he was playing the dobro just and the same song just like they did on the record, and he was just playing it straight through, with the dobro and singing, the slide too. So, and I think maybe rhythm or what I think the whole album has rhythm, but by the other guitars, but I'm stupid. I can't think of his name. I'm not gonna lie, but Devin will probably tell me in just a second. But yeah, I think it's a great track. It took me a little while to catch on to this one. For a while, I didn't like it, but I don't know. I just like I like it better when Clapton plays slide on an electric guitar. I think it goes over better. And this one could have been left off the album too, in my opinion. But that's just because of the song overall and just the execution. But it's not that the band was horrible or anything. No, they sucked and they needed don't they didn't need to quit their day job. No, I'm just kidding. Like I said about 5150. But yeah, I think this one could have been left off as well. But back to you, brother.
All righty, and guess what, Steven?
What's that?
The guitar player is Andy Fairweather Lowe.
Look. I was having a brain issue. Okay.
But it says it in the liner notes that the dobro is overdubbed on this song, so I don't know. That's what it
No,
said.
I know for a fact.
But yeah.
I know Clapton. You know, if anybody knows Clapton, it's T.D.M.M.M.P.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. So then we go to track 8, and I'm assuming I think this is on vinyl. This is a double vinyl, so I'm assuming this is the last. This is the last song on side 2 of the first vinyl. But going away, baby. So this is kind of, sorta a shuffle kind of song. I mean, it sounds a whole lot like the track Memphis by Lonnie Mack, but I like it. I think it's a good song. I mean, it's kind of maybe a maybe just a tad, and I mean just a little bit fillerish, but I still enjoy it. I think that it's a very good song. So not much else to add to that other than I like it for what it is. It kind of is what it is. Like I said earlier, it's kind of I don't have a whole lot of stuff to say about some of these songs. Now there's a lot of them I do, but this one in particular, it's just kind of there. It's a album track. I like it. Can't say much else other than that. So, Stephen, what's your thoughts?
Honestly, I didn't even hear what you said the name was. What was the name of the
Um,
song?
going away, baby.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah. Oh, this one. I think this is my second favorite track on the album, and I'm gonna say my first favorite, and it's yet to come. So just stay tuned, and people are gonna just keep listening just because I said that. So I'm a smart podcaster. But anyway, I think this one has a great driving rhythm to it, and I love the drums in this one, and I really think the band just did it perfect, and I loved Clapton's guitar tone on this one, and the riff was simple but it was played perfect. So and Mr. Andy Fairweather Lowe added in some back riffs too. So he always does add a certain element to it. Like Devin said earlier, well not earlier in the episode, but you know, I was talking to him one day and he said he was talking about Andy Fairweather Lowe not being the greatest lead player, and I was well, that's true, but if you're gonna play with Clapton, that's probably not an attribute that you're gonna have. It's not a good attribute to have because he wants to be the main one. He wants to be the dominant league, blues front man. He won't, because predominantly the blues front man is going to be in control and the leader and the one facilitating everything else. So that's pretty much, he's not going to want to have some other guitar player, that's just wild and shredding and doing all this junk. He's not going to want that. Even if they can do that, he's not going to want him to do that. He's going to want him to stay in the background and come in specific spots and then kind of stay out of the way. But I think Andy Fairweather Lowe does a fine job of that, and that's probably why he's probably been the most predominant guitar player with Eric Clapton, along with George Terry and Albert Lee. Well, they hadn't played as much, but they were some good ones too. So back to you, brother.
All righty. So I was fixing to say something. Oh, don't know if you noticed it, but I uttered the unthinkable word that I usually catch myself. First one of the show. Yep. So that was that was kind of a transition, so it doesn't count. So then we move to track number 9, Blues Leave Me Alone, and I believe this is I think it's split down the middle on the vinyl. I need to get the vinyl for this record. So Blues Leave Me Alone, I really enjoy. I think it's got some great harmonica work on on this particular track. I think it's a really good song. So other than that, really good song, Stephen. So back to you.
Well, I think I'm gonna mirror your thoughts on this one, brother. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I don't to tell you the truth. I'm not gonna lie. I don't remember a lot about it, but I do. I don't remember it sticking out too much in my mind. But it was. I think it was pretty good. But I think I think that's the mantra of the whole album. Is Clapton pretty much doing the blues stuff, electric blues stuff, the way he would do it live. I think that's the point of this whole album. Just doing the stuff the way exactly the way he would do it live with the same energy and purpose, and you know that doesn't really carry over to anything else, any other album in my mind that Clapton has ever done except this one. This is basically a live album, you know, but put into the studio, if that makes any sense. I think that's just the way blues has worked, especially in this style. But that's just an interesting thought. But so back to you, brother.
All right, and that is an interesting kind of perspective on this record is that it is a live record because it's live in the studio. So that's pretty interesting to me. And I do think that this particular album, well, this particular song actually kind of goes over a little bit better live, especially the Fillmore East West, whatever it was, version that's out on YouTube is very good. So then we move to the next track, Sinner's Prayer. So I know this track mainly from Ray Charles's version, and I really enjoy it. I mean, it's another slow, drudgy blues song, and I love the lyrics to it. The lyrics are probably the best part of the song, honestly. Some great piano work by Chris Stanton, and I mean, Chris Stanton, of course, goes way back with Clapton. But this is definitely a great song, and to you, Steve.
Um, I know I keep saying this, but this. All right, this is the last time I'll say it. This is the third one I don't think should have been on the album because it's just too, like you said, it's kind of drags on, and like the piano work is good, but it's just it would be good in the background rather than just the piano, at times, and it just kind of drags on. It doesn't fit the album, along with some of the other ones, on the album. There's two or three others that don't fit either. But this is the third one that I'm going to say, final one, that does not fit with the album. And how many tracks are on this album, Devin?
Total of 16 songs.
16. I never did know. I thought it was something like 14, but I guess I was wrong, but I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say. It shouldn't have been on the album. And it sounds like something that would be a bonus track off of a Clapton album, to tell you the truth. you know. But anyway, great stuff, and back to you.
All righty. And yeah, it does kind of seem like it is 14 tracks when you're listening to it. But the next album, Pilgrim, actually is 14 tracks. If I'm not bad wrong, I'm pretty sure it is. And if you're hearing things in the background, let's welcome my dog to the podcast once again. He usually has to break in here on us at least one time during the episode. So let's move on to the next track, Motherless Child. So this was the only commercial single off the record, and it was backed with Drifting. And it went number 63 on the US chart, no, the UK charts, and went number, I'm here now, I'm all over the place here, but it went number 23 on the US chart. So it was a pretty relatively successful single. There was a video shot for this song. You find it on YouTube, but I like it. I've always kind of liked it. I mean, it's another stripped down bluesy song, and I enjoyed it. It was performed live. I like it live. I think it goes over pretty well live on tour and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. I like it. I kind of sometimes I used to get this confused with Motherless Children off of 461 Ocean Boulevard. Not easy to do. I mean, very easy to do because I mean it's kind of the same title just about. So, Stephen, what's your thoughts on this track?
Well, I've only got a couple of comments for this one. I used to like it a lot, but now I think it's too stripped down. Listening back to it, I think it should have been more instruments. I know they gradually brought them in, but I think they should have did it from the start and even more instruments. And I just, I don't know. It's just kind of iffy to me. I think it should have been on the album. I just think that they should have made it sound more like 5 More Years ish. I mean, not the same song, but like the same sort of production, same sort of setup. And it's just, I don't know. Sounds like a demo or something to me. Sounds way too stripped down. And I don't know. So back to you, brother.
Alrighty, and then we move to the next track. It Hurts Me Too. This is another one that was kind of a semi-staple during the tours after this album. It was on that Hyde Park show I talked about a little bit earlier. So yeah, It Hurts Me Too. Prominent slide work on this particular track, and very very cool to hear him play slide on this one. He's always kind of had slide here and there in his music, but I think in this particular track it's some fantastic slide work by Clapton. Very very kind of heavy slide work, kind of Dwayne Allman esque in a way. You just heard the dog; he agrees. But yeah, I like this track quite a bit. I think it goes over well live and here. I mean, I'm saying live, but I mean on tour because I mean both of them were really. This album, like you said, really is live, and like I've said, so it hurts me too. I really like it. I think this one also could have been a single. And I was going to just ask you, just kind of bouncing back to the previous track, do you think Motherless Child was the right call for a single?
Mm, yeah, I really do. Out of the songs, that was the right choice because it does, although it is stripped down, it sounds the most commercial, which is not saying much, but it sounds the most commercial out of all of these songs. If you know what I'm saying, it's not saying much, but anyway, I can see how it would probably do better than these other ones, because either you're a blues fan or you're not. You know, if you're gonna listen to some of those songs like 5 More Years and I'm Tore Down, you're gonna like it or you're not gonna like it, in my opinion, or not in my opinion, but I just know how that's how it is. You know, and that's yeah, that's that for that.
Okay, and I agree. I think that was the most commercial track on the record. I don't know what I said earlier when I was talking about the singles. I may have actually totally said that this was not the best call, but I do remember I said I think "I'm Tore Down" would have been would have been a great first single, but I think this one that song is the most commercial song on the album. So it hurts me too. Really good song. So Stephen, what's your thoughts?
Well, pretty much to mirror your thoughts, this song is a lot harder to play than it looks and sounds to play. I've tried it a couple of times and it's a very odd tuning. And just to try to play it physically, like even Clapton said, it's impossible to play this song like Elmore James did it, and he had to compensate by putting a lot of guitars, amp or stuff over it to make it sound really good. And he made thick lead playing sound and a lot of distortion is what he said he put on it because it's physically impossible to play just like the way Elmore James does because he's known as the king of the slide guitar, so that's for a reason. But you know, Eric Clapton would probably he's probably my favorite slide player. It's just because I can identify with that more versus other people. And but I like that old blues stuff too, like Elmore James and I think for Clapton, I think Clapton pretty much nailed it. If that makes any sense. So uh, basically straight through all the way and pretty straightforward. And uh, back to you, brother.
All right, and I believe the Allman Brothers actually covered this song too as well. If I'm not bad wrong, and I believe Foghat actually did a cover of this as well. So then we move to the next track, Someday After a While. So this is kind of, I look at this one very much as Five Long Years Part 2. And I mean, it's another slow blues song. Great, fantastic guitar work on this particular track. I think it's one of the best songs on this album. And I really, really enjoy it. My favorite track, I'd probably have to say, is Blues Leave Me Alone. Or no, I'll go ahead and say this is my favorite track on the record. I think Someday After a While is a really, really good song. So not much else to add. Just a really good blues song. Very great guitar work on this track. So Stephen, what's your thoughts?
That's my sentiments exactly. Um, his guitar work is pretty much impeccable, and the tone and all I love, and the band's for this whole album I could say was pretty straightforward, not anything too flashy, and I think that's the way it should be, and it has to be with Clapton. Like I said before, he's kind of the he's kind of the type that wants to be in control at all times. I mean, if you've ever seen a rehearsal of Eric Clapton of any type, of any form, you know that he's critiquing everybody every 5 seconds. He's changing songs. He's changing this and that. But the point is, he's in control of stuff. So I know it seems like I'm venturing out quite a bit, but I'm just adding stuff in, some different thoughts and stuff for just different ways to look at the music, this particular album, and just because you have to remember he's the one facilitating all this, so and pretty much the one taking control, and I think that's when Clapton is at its best. Tell you the truth, but back to you, brother.
Okay, and then we move to the next track, Standing Round Crying. So this one, I believe he's done this song at another time. I believe he did another version of the song earlier, or at least live he did it. But I like it. I mean, it's another one, kind of a slower blues song. I like it. I think it's a fine track as it is. And pretty much that's all I have for the track. I think it's a relatively good song. And this is track 14 on the record. So we're getting toward the end slowly here. So pretty going to be a pretty long episode the way it's looking. So what's your thoughts on Standing Round Crying, Stephen?
I love this one because I love that slide riff he does, and it's hard to do as well. I don't think anybody could replicate it except Clapton himself to do it that way. You can replicate it, but it's not going to quite sound as good. It's one of those type of things. I've heard a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff with a lot of artists. But not to get too sidetracked. But I think it's a great song overall, and the best one of the best songs on the album. So back to you, brother.
Okay. So then we move to the next track, track number 15, Drifting. So this is another one that this one actually has really stood the test of time in the set list. This and Hoochie Coochie Man have been the ones from this album that kind of stick around. He usually does this one a pretty good bit acoustically. I know it's on that Planes, Trains, and Eric. It's on there acoustically. And totally recommend that. It's a great DVD. And he's done it various other times throughout. But yeah, Drifting, it's acoustic. Just I believe just him on guitar. And I think this would have actually been another good single possibly off the album. Of course, it was the B side to Motherless Child, but yeah, I think Drifting is a good song. It's just a stripped down him by himself on the guitar, just playing. I think it's really good. So, Steven, what's your thoughts on Drifting? I probably already know.
Well, this is great music to use texting lingo, and this particular track, I like the way it turned out in the style of it being stripped down, and I think they added some production things on his guitar, his acoustic guitar. I really like. I know it was just one guitar anyway, but and I do notice that he does when he's playing in E, he does that same solo every time. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, but if you know, you know, guitar players, if you're listening, but probably not. But anyway, but I think it's straight. Well, I know it's straight to the point. I don't think it is, but I think it's perfect the way it is, brother. And and honestly, I don't think this would have been a good single. I think this one sounds more traditional type. And I'm not sure if who did this song originally or who even wrote it, to tell you the truth. I know he didn't write it, which is the case most of the time. Clapton doesn't write a lot of blues songs, straight down blues. All of his stuff is blues oriented mostly, but like straight down traditional blues, he doesn't write a lot of that. And which makes sense to me because you might as well do covers rather than just do the same thing again with different words. But anyway, I like it a lot, and this was used on the DVD of the Antigua Crossroads Fest. That was the original. It wasn't actually called the Crossroads Festival yet, but it was in 1999. That was the actual first original type of. That's what the Crossroads Festival would evolve later, but it started out with the concert 2007 or 2007 1999 with Sheryl Crow and Mary Blige, or what was her name, something like that, and also Bob Dylan, and guesting a couple of different people. But that's just the idea of having a bunch of different people that played guitar or either just did something to that effect. Anyway, I'm getting very sidetracked, but I just like to say information that's different, and just to not you don't click on the episode just to hear about one particular thing. You get a lot of information out of it. That's what I think, or you should. So anyway, they played this for the intro of the DVD, not live, but they played it when he was talking when they first came on there. But after my very ADD like sidetrack um, roller coaster of a conversation with myself, back to you, Devin.
All righty. And I forgot about that it was the intro to that DVD. So when you're listening to this album on a stereo and a surround sound system, and then this song and then Drifting just finally comes to a halt, and then this next song, track number 16, Groaning the Blues, comes in, you're in for it. So this is pretty much, I believe this was a B.B. King song. And I mean, it's down and dirty blues. I mean, whichever way you look at it, it's down and dirty blues, some fantastic guitar work. Love the horns on this particular track. I didn't even talk about there was horns. There were horns all across this album, and I really like it. I think the horn section may have only appeared on "I'm Tore Down" before this one. I could be totally wrong though, but I like it. I think that this track is a great finale to the album, and a very very good song. And I believe it runs like 6 minutes or so. So it's pretty long. It's one of the longer tracks on the album, maybe the longest track. But I enjoy this track quite a bit. I love it. I think it's a very, very good closing song to the record. So, Stephen, what's your thoughts?
Pretty much everything you just said. Pretty much. And also I said earlier that I was going to name my favorite song off the album, and I haven't done so, and this is the last track. So obviously this is going to be it. And but anyway, yes, this is my favorite track off the album, and one of my favorite tracks by Clapton, blues or anything, period, in my opinion. Which which might be surprising, but I don't care. Anyway, I'm just playing. And yeah, like you said, very. I don't want to say grungy, but that's just the first word that came to mind. I don't know why, but it just sounds like really down and dirty, and I love the guitar tone. I wish I could get that tone, but it's probably too expensive. But they say expensive tones. If you've ever watched some of these YouTube channels with guitar players, and I'm going to go off on a whole nother tangent and start talking about the election before it's over, but I'm not going to. I hope not. But anyway, uh, that shows you when we recorded this. But anyway, I think it's a complete masterpiece, and will go down in the books as one of the greatest Clapton's ever done. So back to you, Devin.
All righty. And that's the reason I said a minute ago during Drifting that I thought I already knew your thoughts because I thought Drifting was your favorite on the album, but that surprised me. So this brings a close to the album. And I mean, like I said, it was a relatively successful album when it came out. And it's one, like I said, I always go back to this record. I always really enjoy this record. And I've not said a whole lot about the songs on this record because I really and truly, I don't have a whole lot to say. I think the album itself works as a whole. And I think the musicians on this record are really, really good. And it went actually talking about how successful the album actually was. It went 3 times platinum, so I mean it did really really well. And just to get into the band real quick, and then we'll give our closing thoughts, which I've already kind of did, but I'll let Steven say his. But the band on this record, you've got Clapton on guitar and vocals, of course. I'm reading directly from the booklet. Dave Bronze on bass guitar, Jim Keltner on drums, popular session musician there. Andy Fairweather Lowe on guitar, rhythm guitar. Jerry Portnoy on harmonica. Chris Stanton on keyboards. Roddy Lorimer on trumpet. Simon Clark on baritone sax. And Tim Sanders on the tenor sax. Horns arranged and played by the kick horns, which are those three. And they stayed with him quite a little bit after this album, actually. And then the percussion on How Long Blues was actually played by Richie Hayward, which kind of bridges what I was fixing to talk about the tour before this record. So before this album actually came to be, this concept had already kind of started evolving with Clapton doing some touring with a band that featured, it was pretty much this band, except in the place of Jim Keltner, you had Richie Hayward, who later ended up on this album playing percussion. And then you had, in place of Dave Bronze, you had Donald Duck Dunn returning back from the Behind the Sun, Money and Cigarettes lineup. So they toured quite a bit, and it was pretty much this, and then they would throw in. It was pretty much nothing but the blues, but then they would throw in Badge, Layla, Crossroads, which is technically blues, and then I believe White Room as well, and then Stone Free, which was a Hendrix cover he did for a tribute record, I believe actually called Stone Free. And they went out there. There's bootlegs on YouTube you can find. They're very good shows, actually. And I believe Katie Kassoon and Tessa Niles were on those shows. If I'm not bad wrong, I believe they were on early, and then by the end of it they may have been gone. But he kind of done that for a while. I think toward the end of the tour is when he transitioned into nothing but the blues, and then eventually the tour that succeeded this record was Nothing But the Blues, and it was actually called Nothing But the Blues Tour. And a VHS was planned to be released from this tour. It was a documentary called Nothing But the Blues, done by Martin Scorsese, and it was from the Fillmore shows I've kind of talked about throughout the review. It's never been released. There were plans to release it at the time, and I believe some advance copies were sent out, but then all the other copies were basically never released. So it's somewhere in the vaults, I guess. But that's just a little side note. And just as far as final thoughts go, I'll let Stephen talk about his, and then I'll get into mine. So Stephen, or the rest of mine, I should say. So Stephen, what's your final thoughts on this record?
Well, I won't go off on too much of a tangent here, but I think my rating for the album is a 10 out of 10. Although there were a couple that I thought that could have been arranged different or taken off here or there, I think the way it turned out flowed well. And honestly, I think it should have been probably 14 tracks. No, actually 13, because I said there was three of them. I said it should have been off, so I think it should have been down to 13 tracks. And especially for only blues stuff, it just drags. It just drags on when it starts getting into that slower stuff like How Long Blues. You start going, all right, let's pep it up again. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I think they should have stayed with that formula of like 5 long years, that sort of thing, like Clapton shredding on everything. But anyway, that's just what I think. 8 out of is that what I said? I think I said no. I said 10 out of 10. I'm so dumb. I changed my rating already. This is gonna turn into a complete comedy routine. Okay, I'm mentally retarded and unstable. I'm just playing. I don't need to be making fun of retarded people. I'm sorry, but anyway, back to you, Dev.
All righty. So I'll probably give this 10 out of 10 as well. As you can tell, I like the whole album. And just kind of diverging back into the band really quickly. During this tour, entered probably Clapton's most prominent drummer after Jamie Oldacre and possibly Phil Collins. But Steve Gadd, originally the drummer for this tour was going to be Andy Newmark, and I think I was like calling him Dave Newmark or something before recording. But Andy Newmark was like for the first half of the tour, and the second half was Steve Gadd, and Steve Gadd stayed with him pretty much since. And now he's actually playing with two drummers, Steve Gadd and another guy, and they work together as a unit very, very good. But I give this album a 10 out of 10, as I just said. I like this album. It's the one I probably go back to the most as far as Clapton records go. And I love it. I think From the Cradle is a good album. It was a different direction for Clapton. As far as his 90s albums go, which there are only two studio records, this and Pilgrim, I'll take this one over Pilgrim. I think Pilgrim's a little bit too long. And we'll talk about Pilgrim at some point in the future. But yeah, I really, really enjoy this record, as I've just said a million times before this. But That's it. That's all I have. That is the review today. And yeah, let's kind of start wrapping things up. So, Stephen, what are your picks of the week this week?
I'm gonna say one more from the road, Eric Clapton. We was talking about that earlier, and I haven't thought about it like usual. So you can pretty much count on me every time counting. Selecting something very random and the first thing that comes to mind. So congratulations. But and also for music, or well, that was music. Crap, I'm stupid. But for movie, I'm gonna say I just thought of something I already said before. I was gonna say that movie on YouTube. Oh no, I got it. My pick of the week is gonna be the Leonard Skinner plane crash movie. That's gonna be my pick of the week right there for movie. That's a great movie. Devin thinks the opposite of me, but I think it's a great movie. So what do you think about that, Devin?
Well, I think your opinions are stupid and suck and it is retarded. No offense. But okay, I mean, whatever. That's your opinion. I mean, nothing said, nothing. There's no hard feelings here. I mean, the podcast is still going to go on. So, as far as my pick of the week, music wise, I'm going to go with a Clapton album as well. And I'm actually going to pick Another Ticket. I think Another Ticket is a fine Clapton record. Kind of the end of an era in many ways. I mean, it was the end of his time. Can't remember that record label he was on at the time, but it was the end of that of his time with that record label. After that, he joined Warner Brothers, and I think it's a good album. I mean, Gary Brooker's on there, Albert Lee, who else? Chris Stanton, Dave Marquis, Henry Spinetti. Just a great lineup in general, and of course Clapton rounding out. So that's a great album, and that's my music pick of the week. My movie pick of the week, and I probably already chose this one way back when we first started, but Mallrats. So Mallrats is Kevin Smith's sophomore effort, and it's the total definition of a sophomore slump. I think that when it came out, it did terribly. People didn't like it. Now it's gained a cult audience, and which I mean it deserves one. I love it so much. I just got a 2 disc Arrow Video Blu-ray release of it with a great scan. You got the theatrical, the extended, and you've also got the TV cut, which I haven't watched, but I really want to because it's got so much profanity in it that they kind of they dub in a lot of stuff. One of the actors did not come in to have his voice dubbed over, so from what I understand, it sounds very off, and I'm really interested to hear that. Also, just got it on VHS, so I kind of trying to get it in all formats. Maybe I'll find the laser disc somewhere. So and well, I don't have the DVD. I have the DVD actually. I do have the DVD. So yeah, that's my picks of the week. And I just also want to. I'll have another pick of the week, a recommendation, and that is ACDC Power Up. It came out yesterday. We're recording on the 14th of November on a Saturday night, so we're dating this episode already. But this episode will be out shortly after we record, though. At least I'm planning on it, so don't quote me there. But by the time you hear this episode, you'll know it's out. I digress. I'm getting off on a tangent here. So Power Ups, I totally recommend. I think it's a great album. I think the first single was a really good song, "Shot in the Dark." I think "Rejection," which was actually released shortly before the album came out, I think it was even better. So yeah, I think Power Up is probably to me the best they've done. And I said for those about the rock, to rock earlier. But I'm going to say this is the best they've done since Back in Black. And I know that's a bold statement, but that's my opinion. I think Brian Johnson sounds the best he's sounded in years. Definitely. So that's my opinion there. And Power Up, totally recommend it. I still haven't purchased it, but I'm soon going to. I want to get the big box that lights up and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. So that's another little pick of the week, more or less kind of a review. And I may do a short review for this channel during the week or something like that, and just talk about each track and my thoughts on each one of them. Because I've heard it once, so I'm going to let it sink in, listen to it again, see what I think. One of the standout tracks is called Through the Mist of Time. Go listen to that. It's a little bit different for AC/DC, at least in my opinion it is. So, yeah, definitely go listen to that one. Those of you who are listening, which the audience we have, they've probably already heard it because that's their kind of music and stuff like that. So, Stephen, have you heard any of the new album other than the single I sent you?
No, I haven't, brother Jake.
Okay, I'll send it to you after we get off here. So that's been the new episode here. So we're slowly going to come back. We're going to start transitioning into kind of a new format. We're going to be trying something new out. That's kind of the reason we've been on a hiatus. We kind of talked about changing the name. That's not going to happen. We're going to keep the name. We're just going to kind of free it up a little bit more and kind of have a much more of kind of a laid back format, if you will. And so that's what we've got planned out here. I do want to get a little bit active on the channel and put like some different reviews and stuff like that up here and there in the time coming up. So a lot of new episodes going to come out. We just released Leonard Skinner's One More from the Road, which featured my cousin Gerald Pete Turner. And we just released that one. I was going to release it in the future, but I didn't want to have two Clapton albums in a row. So I'm going to put this one out after the Skinner one. So that's pretty much been the new episode. We'll be back with one coming up here in the future. So stay tuned and hope you all enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon in the corner to get all notifications. And follow our channel, Stephen Bryan, which is Stephen's new channel, The Solicitor, which is his old channel. Then you've got my channel, just Devin Dungan. Then you've got this channel, so follow it, like I said. And we're still on Anchor. Haven't posted a lot on there in a while. But I'm going to try to get on top of that and start putting some more episodes up on there. And that's pretty much all I have. So hope you enjoyed the episode. Do you have any final words, Steve?
Whoop-de-doo, frickin' dang.
Okay. So, random crap.
Tasty gringo.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, Jackson or, there's another, but,
Sonny.
oh, yes, Sonny James, Sonny Boy Williamson, whatever. So, that's been the new episode of the Dungan-Mott Music and Movie Podcast. The Blues are back with brand new episodes to come in the future. So thank you for each and every one of you for watching and hope you all enjoy this episode. God bless you all. Stay safe out there in this world. And as I always say when I end these episodes off, see you next time.